economically speaking,
Again, Democrats tripping, but we keep on winning though. That's why I voted for Trump. We keep on winning. Let's vote for be a winner. We are winners, especially as children of God. But let's go ahead and continue. This is Trish Regan.
And you don't want to be against
Check
us
it out.
in this moment in time. Because the U.S. is taking charge in a major way, in a way that we probably have not seen since World War II. And it's going to have major implications for all of Europe, where I'm coming to you from right now, and the world as a whole. It's going to have major implications for our economy, for energy markets, for oil markets. You're seeing even today the investing community getting excited because the US of A is back in charge. We're taking over, if you would, the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, did you hear that? You know, it might be time to actually come to the table because we're going to choke you off, economically speaking, in a massive, massive way. Hey, Europe, it might really be time to come to the table because if you're not with us, increasingly we may just think you're against us. And you don't want to be against us in this moment in time. Because the US of A is back in charge. Just look at how it's being reflected in markets, in the US dollar. We're going to be running
Trump been playing chess on them. They been playing checkers. Trump playing chess. That's what I'm talking about.
We're getting oil right through in Texas. Just look at all the ships right now coming to Texas, okay? This is the new world order. The media doesn't want to admit it. The media hates it for whatever reason.
We got to do something. All this money we owe, we got to do something. You know what I'm saying? Get this money back.
In terms of the
what, 30, 40 trillion dollars in debt, something like that? Thank you, Trump.
I was in Spain over the weekend where they're about to close a couple of bases. We'll talk about that. But, you know, I look at this. And
good morning, Texas. Good morning. Good morning, Grit. Good morning, you guys.
A new world war has arrived. Not a new world era, as I'm describing to you, but a new era of world war. In other words, they're convinced that it's all death and destruction. Again, I would just point back to the markets, because if it was all going to be death and destruction, we would actually see that the markets would be tanking. But that is not the case.
Nope,
okay, the
markets
are actually handling
this
quite well. Why? Because it's showing that the US of A is back in charge, which is good news, okay? Good news for us.
Right.
Even though the media doesn't want to admit it. And by the way, not just the liberal media, you get some wackadoos in the MAGA media as well, if we can call them any MAGA anymore.
No, they ain't MAGA at all.
Donald Trump, really.
They straight traitors.
To them as we went into the weekend, as we have discussed, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit as well, because I think a lot of people, unfortunately, are most influenced in this moment in time by clicks. And maybe by the appeal of some libs kind of liking them, right? They get all attention, all kinds of attention, suddenly in the likes of the Daily Beast, the Huffington Post. I don't know who wants attention in those places, but some people do. Some people do. And they like being talked about in ways that they think make them more important. And so you're seeing that going on. But in spite of all of it, what's happening? Donald Trump is doubling down.
Yeah, they panicking. Okay. Yes.
21 hours worth of talks, getting you nowhere. Well, he's got a solution for that. And he's putting that solution into place as we speak. Yes, it's a new era. And the US of A is back on top. We'll talk about Ilhan, too. If you saw the lower third on the screen. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff.
Like and subscribe, everybody. Like and subscribe. Let's grow, let's grow.
Spent time over the weekend in Spain. We'll talk all about it because I was near those bases. There's two of them that are very, very important, and they're about to be shut down. And it's massive for the Spanish economy. You're talking about 4,000, 5,000 service members there. You're talking about an influx of cash that's quite significant. In fact, in just the last year or so, we saw the U.S. spending $200 million in one of those bases, in one of those towns alone. So that's going to be a big hit. But apparently Spain can't quite catch up to it. For whatever reason, it seems to be on the other side.
Like and subscribe. Yes, Trump.
on, as they may soon find out, the wrong side, right? NATO, get with it. NATO's going to have to get
Good morning,
with it.
good morning.
I mean,
Thanks for stopping by. Name is
nuclear on
Deunta.
them, right? He said, hey, if you guys don't do this, guess what? You're going to have a huge problem because we don't need to engage.
Like and subscribe if you guys
have
haven't. Like and subscribe.
Think about what we spent on Ukraine. He's come out very, very, very strong against this. U.S. at this moment in time enforcing a blockade there in the Strait of Hormuz, cutting off all of the Iranian ports and doing so quite successfully, going solo without the help of NATO. But they're coming to the table, including the folks right here in the town.
Eric in trouble. It's a wrap for him.
Where I was just going by the Defense Department here in
I'm coming back from it.
It's a very nice building, by the way. They're coming to their senses because they don't have a choice. They have to listen to the President of the United States just last night railing against NATO.
You know, we spend trillions of dollars on NATO to help
Good morning, Matt.
guard really against Russia. When you think of it, we're guarding against Russia. And I've long thought it was a little ridiculous, but we spend trillions of dollars doing it. And I think that's going to be under very serious examination. Thank you very much.
And with that, he walks away. Very serious examination indeed, because we do spend a lot of money, trillions of dollars, in fact. And if we're there for you, but you're not there for us, and really it's not a relationship that's working out very well, right? Not that we need you, because apparently we can do this all on our own. I do think, however...
Yeah, that Trump post don't bother me either. That Trump post don't bother me, because number one, it's not what Jesus wore. We're not for sure what Jesus wore, really. But them colors are the Pope colors. And he's making fun of the Pope. I get nothing against that either. But hey, it wasn't about Jesus. And he already know who Jesus is. He acknowledged Jesus, and that's what I respect. He acknowledged Jesus, who Jesus is, and he died on the cross for our sins. So all this, outrage is not necessary at all.
Or you will have no choice but to come to the table, and we are hearing word that the UK is prepared to step up, because here's the reality of the situation. No, the Iranians cannot hold the rest of the world hostage. We can enforce a blockade, and we are enforcing a blockade, but it shouldn't have to be us entirely alone. In other words, we can do it. But if we're going to offer you all the support that we've given you, Europe, for Ukraine, then we expect reciprocity, if you would. Listen to the president earlier today.
Mr. President, as far as the naval blockade is concerned, what's the end game? Is it to force Iran back to the negotiating table? Is it to open up the strait so the gas prices ultimately come in?
Maybe everything. Both of those things, certainly, and more. We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen. And, the amazing thing is we don't, can you believe this? We don't use the strait. We don't need the strait. We have our own oil, gas, much more than we need. We have more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia. Think of this. We produce more. Saudi Arabia, and add Russia to it. Substantially more. And by next year, we'll have double that amount. So we don't need it.
Good morning, Adam. Good morning.
And many ships are heading to our country right now as we speak to load up with the best. Really, I guess you could say, somebody said the best and sweetest. I don't know exactly what sweet is, but when it relates to oil, it's a good thing. But they're coming to our country right now. There are many boats coming to our country. Now, it could very well be this is going to be settled before that. We've been called this morning by the
Good morning. Like and subscribe, everybody. Like and subscribe.
They would like to work with
I'm a Trump supporter. If you're not, it's cool. You still welcome to the chat. Glad you guys here. Like and subscribe. Name is Deunta.
Because guess what? We've just figured out we can completely shut off their entire economy. The Iranian economy is entirely dependent on its oil exports. And sure, it's actually gone kind of well for the last 6 weeks because the price of oil has gone up. And basically, all of that oil has been going to China. And now China can't get its oil, so it's not too happy either. So it's putting pressure on Iran. I mean, not quite like we are, but it's putting pressure as well. And so if all of the oil is stopped leaving Iran and its ports, then it's got nothing. I mean, I think one of the reasons the president hesitated to do that was because he knew that it would affect overall prices, right? When you take off 20% of the world's supply, which is what the Strait of Hormuz is actually accounting for. We don't need the oil. We have plenty of oil here, of course. But when you take 20% of the world's supply off, what happens to the price of oil? It goes up. And so he didn't want the price of oil to go way up all of a sudden because, well, that's bad for everyone. Don't forget, it's a commodity. So even though we have plenty of it here, when you take off 20% of the world's supply, yeah, it's going to go up. So Iran actually benefited from that. Think about that. Because the oil prices were going up. They were still shipping their oil. They were getting their ships out going to China. And now the president said, yep, that's not going to happen anymore. We're not going to allow for that anymore at all. And so we're shutting it down. And we're going in, and all of your little Iranian ports, including Karg Island, are getting shut down. You're not going to get 1 ounce of oil out of that country, as long as we have anything to say about it. And hey, Europe, it would be nice if you would step up to the plate too. Right? I mean, this is him over the weekend. He's demanding NATO send warships to take on Iran or lose support for good because he wants them involved. Period. Full stop. And this is why the UK is figuring out it doesn't really have a choice here. It wants to salvage the relationship it has. It knows that it needs the US for NATO, but there are other actors that are a little bit more like petulant children, like Spain, that don't want to step up to the plate. But then again, they never do, right? Spain, I mean, they were told last year, you're going to have to contribute like 5% of GDP to NATO. And they're like, are you kidding? They have no interest in it. So we shouldn't be surprised. But then again, why should we be spending hundreds of millions of dollars on those bases if we can't even use them? I mean, literally, we can't even use them. We tried to. We wanted to. And they wouldn't. And France, think about France not even allowing us use of their airspace. France is going to have to come around too. I think Spain, however, is rolling the dice in a bigger way than it should. Listen to the president again.
Is it your anticipation, Mr. President, that other countries will assist in this effort to blockade Iran and those?
Yeah, other countries are going to assist. We don't need other countries, frankly, but they've offered the services. We'll let it be known probably tomorrow.
Has the blockade started?
Yeah, started 10 o'clock.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Well. All right. Iran's not getting anything through. We've actually seen a number of, I think the number is, I'll get this for you, it's around 34 ships that just went through over the weekend. They're getting through. And the president's saying, hey, we're going to announce who is joining this coalition tomorrow. I can tell you, my source is telling me, and again, my on-the-ground reporting indicating that Spain is not going to be one of them. They've actually become the most resistant NATO member. And as a result of this, we're looking at closing a couple of bases, Rota and Morón. Okay, so these are the two big bases. We've talked about these a little bit on the show before. I spent some time over the weekend, as I said, in Spain, and I can tell you, I mean, here's just, you're looking
Thanks,
out
Adam.
here
Appreciate
at the Mediterranean. If you're watching this video right now, you can see this is the Mediterranean Sea there. That's pretty key and pretty important in the scheme of things. It's worth knowing. Actually, that might be the Alboran Sea right there, and along with the Mediterranean, you've got the Atlantic and the Mediterranean that meet in Spain. And so there's a base called Rota, which is near Cadiz. And the reason this matters is somebody said the other day on the show, they thought that I had it confused, that Gibraltar was somehow part of Spain. No. That's the UK. But you've got the Strait of Gibraltar. Okay, that's what's important, because, we talk about the Strait of Hormuz, you get the Strait of Gibraltar, and that's what connects the Mediterranean with the Atlantic Ocean. And so it's another key waterway, which is why we have that operation in Cadiz, in that area, Spain, called Rota. That's a naval base. And then we have the air base, Morón, a little bit further north than that. And so this is critical stuff, right? You want to have that because you're talking about a waterway that's incredibly important, where you have this connection there through that strait. And so it's important as an asset for us to be over there. It's important for them to have us there. very, very important because we're the ones that are spending all the money. I mean, the latest numbers I saw were in the vicinity of $200 million that was being spent just within the last year on these various bases. And you have roughly 4,000 or so personnel, Army and Navy, Air Force Base being Moron, the Navy base being the base Naval de Rota. They're near Cadiz, Spain, as I said. And so now Spain is saying, well, you can't use these. And it's like, guys, we've been spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this. We ought to be able to use it, right? Like, it's sort of ours. And they're like, no. And on top of that, they're not even willing to step up to the plate and pay their fair share that was agreed upon in 2025 of what they should be contributing. They're the ones, and they got away with it. How are they getting away with this stuff? This is part of the problem. So you got to clamp down on it if you're going to actually have NATO. He keeps calling it a paper tiger, right? If this thing is going to have any teeth, then everybody kind of has to be on the same page. And if you have one leader, which effectively is us, it always is, running the show, then everybody else has got to come to the table and contribute likewise and be a united force. You know, it's like when parents are divided, kids try and do this, right? Divide and conquer, divide and conquer. They can see if they can get mom and dad on a different point of view and you know, do thus get away with stuff because, you know, dad said yes and mom said no. It's like, well, dad said I could do this or vice versa. Mom said I could do this. And this is what Spain's trying to do, for goodness sakes. They're like, well, you know, we still want to be part of NATO, but we don't actually want to have to do any of the things that would require us to be part of this. And then you have a lot of other countries that are saying, well, you know, if Spain's doing it, then I guess we can too. And so you're coming apart at the seams, on top of which you get this media bias that's built in. A lot of people have talked about the soft spending that you see with the Iranian influence. In Spain, there's actually a television network that has Iranian sponsorship. And so that starts to take effect, I think, in the psychology of the mindset there, where you have an influence that is not aligned with Western culture, but more so with the Iranians. And so consequently, the Spanish people don't want to have anything to do with this. The Europeans in general, right? They don't want to have anything to do with this. But this is, again, a community that thought it was perfectly fine to go and take all their
good morning, good morning. Like and subscribe. Good morning, good morning.
From Russia. It's like, you know, guys, you get what you pay for here. You're not very smart about these things. Now, are you? No, they're not. They're consistently not very smart. And it's actually a sticking point. I remember President Trump trying to encourage them not, Germany, not to get all their natural gas from Russia. But they didn't listen. They didn't listen. And so then you're in the Ukraine situation and eventually you have sanctions that are kicking in. And so then they definitely can't go get their natural gas from Russia. But by the way, Russia was willing to shut them off. So now why would you be so dependent on someone that you didn't really consider an ally? Again, the Europeans not thinking. Their heads are in the clouds. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, but they're so unlike us in every way. I mean, a lot of great things about the people here. Don't get me wrong. But there's just sometimes, I think, a lack of basic common sense. And that may be in part because of the educational influence of wokeness that has infiltrated all of Europe over the last couple of decades, which was trying to infiltrate the United States of America, but it's not getting very far.
Go woke and go broke.
Lately. But I think that there's just a lack of reality. So they don't understand quite how serious this is. And so Donald Trump's trying to hit him over the head with this. And as a result, maybe then the world will be a safer place. But I'll tell you what, it will be because of us. So once again, the U.S. leading the way, the U.S. willing to go where no one else will, the U.S. of A. willing to come forward with that blockade, doing so solo so that ships can get through, and now Iran effectively on its knees begging to make a deal.
Are another round of talks planned with Iran? And if so, will you send Vice President J.D. Vance with?
Well, he's done a good job, and Steve and Jared, they've all done a very good job. And I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly. Very badly.
What was this?
They'd like to make a deal. Well, I should think they would want to, right? I should think they would want to make a deal in light of how critical it is for their economy. And I mean really, really, really critical for their economy. We did get word that 34 ships were going through. Boy, I'm getting close to the camera, I realize it. And then Donald Trump saying that 34 ships were going through, the highest number since this whole thing started. And finally, maybe the Iranians might be realizing that they don't hold all the cards in any of this. They really don't. I want to go to a Fox report ahead of the blockade earlier this morning.
Now, the Iranian military is warning that no Gulf ports will be safe if their own ports are threatened. We understand there are a variety of contingencies in place, and U.S. Central Command says that humanitarian vessels and regular commercial ships not coming from Iran will be allowed to use the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM releasing a statement of their own this weekend saying the blockade will be enforced impartially against vessels of all nations entering or departing Iranian ports and coastal areas, including all Iranian ports on the Arabian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. CENTCOM forces will not impede freedom of navigation for vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz to and from non-Iranian ports. President Trump this weekend speaking about the situation, saying this.
Other nations are working so that Iran will not be able to sell oil, and that will be very effective. But what we want to do is and again, we don't need it. What we notice and what we see and what I think is maybe my idea, maybe not, I don't know. But there are many boats heading toward our country to fill up with oil and then go and take it. So they're not going to go through the Hormuz Strait. And ultimately, that'll be corrected.
With a focus on Iran, there's also a focus on Lebanon, where Israel and the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah continue to trade blows. You can see the aftermath here on Sunday of an Israeli strike. We understand Hezbollah is still launching rockets, even at this very minute, over the border into northern Israel. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was joined by his defense minister, Israel Katz, this weekend inside southern Lebanon, where they met with soldiers who are taking the fight to Hezbollah. The IDF says they have targeted and taken out more than 100 Hezbollah operatives in just one area alone. Netanyahu adding this.
I would just say, listen, one of the challenges with Iran is that they have all these little groups, right, including the likes of Hamas and Hezbollah, that are operating effectively on their own terms. So you have no central command. We've talked about this before. It's one of the challenges with the Iranians, because even when you take out the first round of leaders and the second round of leaders, and even if you get a third round of leaders that seemingly tell you they want to make a deal, which, I've cautioned about that repeatedly, I think eventually they will just have no choice, because they're going to be down on their knees without any kind of economic support whatsoever. We are shutting them down. I mean, really shutting them down. And so as a result of all that, maybe they'll want to make a deal, but we
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's the meme of the day, brought to you by 5mind.com. Okay, so I'm sure you guys heard the news, and I gotta say, it's not exactly surprising. I was, of course, naively hoping for a better result, but what do you expect? You really thought the Iranians were gonna come to the table and make it that easy from a diplomatic perspective? Of course not. They prove once again that they simply cannot be trusted. They cannot be dealt with in an honest, upfront fashion. And so here we are, the talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, have essentially failed.
We've been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. But the simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these negotiations. Again, their nuclear program, such as it is, the enrichment facilities that they had before, they've been destroyed. But the simple question is, do we see a fundamental commitment of will for the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term. We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will.
And now, of course, in comes the panic. Most likely the markets are going to react negatively. We're going to see some short-term damage as we already have, and I'm sure the political interest groups and the mainstream media is going to be doing everything in their power to blow this whole ordeal out of proportion. And so I'm going to use my time here to do what I always do, try to offer a little bit of perspective and counterbalance to the conversation. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so of course, if you follow on social media, if you follow what the left-wing grifters are saying, it's an utter disaster. It's just so bad. It's such horrible bad news. Things just got so much worse, but I'm sitting in my chair reading all this, and I'm a little bit baffled, a little bit confused. How can you make the argument that things are now so much worse after the failed negotiations when the dynamic still remains identical? In fact, I would even argue we're in a better position than before. I think it's clear what these desperate Iranian Islamofascist thugs are up to here. They use this opportunity to do a little bit of a bait and switch to get the negotiations going, and then to sabotage the whole thing to make it seem again as if President Trump has failed in his efforts. But frankly, I think you have to be a complete moron to fall for that kind of a strategy. The Iranians are trying to make it seem as if they have leverage when it's very clear that they have absolutely none. Once again, total paper tiger activities. They're talking a big game in terms of the rhetoric, all this scary rhetoric when it comes to shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. But from a policy perspective, the news that we just got is that they're now planning to open commercial transit in the Strait of Hormuz. The only thing that's stopping it is the cluster of marine mines that they've set up there, which they have absolutely no capability of clearing, which then of course followed with President Trump sending 2 American Navy vessels to transit through the Strait of Hormuz. And in response to this, the Iranians did precisely nothing. All this big talk, don't you dare send those vessels through the Strait of Hormuz, and they did fucking nothing.
Yesterday, you probably saw, we sent 2 highly sophisticated, beautiful, brand new destroyers right through the middle of the strait, and nobody did anything to us because what we do is we follow the weapon back. So it follows back, knocks out the people on the other side. Literally within 3 minutes, they're knocked out. The technology is unbelievable.
They could send kamikaze drones to attack innocent commercial vessels, mostly from unsuspecting nations. At one point, they targeted a commercial vessel from Thailand, but the idea that they're going to start attacking U.S. naval vessels, obviously that's not going to happen, and Donald Trump has called them on their bluff, and he's now proven that just as we have basically free reign over their skies, I think the same applies to the Strait of Hormuz as well. I don't know exactly what they were expecting from, this little act that's going on following the sabotage of negotiations in Islamabad, Pakistan. Some reports seem to be indicating that they were expecting J.D. Vance to just capitulate and totally fold and give them what they wanted. But obviously that was never going to happen because once again, we hold all the cards. We're in a position of absolute command and authority. And so instead, Trump is responding once again, not with capitulation and fear, but just kicking the force up a notch. He's now announcing a naval blockade at the Strait of Hormuz.
We have a lot of people, as you know, at 10 o'clock tomorrow, we have a blockade going into effect. That'll be 10 o'clock tomorrow. Other nations are working so that Iran will not be able to sell oil.
Total paper tiger activities. And once again, I'm feeling the exact same thing throughout this entire Iran situation. It feels like there's a narrative push to kind of get you to get cold feet, lose your footing, get scared and back off. That's obviously been the Iranian strategy since day one. Look at gas prices. Ooh, you're paying $10 more at the pump. Might as well abandon the mission and allow these terrorist thugs to continue operations as per usual. But I think it's going to take a whole lot more than that. The reality is, if you look at every single poll, the American people want to see this operation succeed. Whether or not they think it's wise, whether or not they support Trump's every action, that's a different conversation. But by and large, 75% plus of the population, when polled, does not want Iran to have full control of the Strait of Hormuz, does not want Iran to be able to bully the Gulf region into submission, does not want Iran to get their hands on a nuclear weapon. And so we've got the mission in mind. The American people clearly support the ambition itself, and frankly, in my view, Iran hasn't done anything to deter me from supporting that mission, especially not when in a position of absolute strength. And again, this notion that now things have turned to the worse, it's simply not the case. We're hearing reports that Saudi Arabia has restored their oil pipeline to max capacity. That accounts for roughly 7 million barrels a day, which go east-west on land and basically bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. And as we know, in situations like this, the Saudis can increase their capacity. Well, now the report is that they're fully restored. Not to mention, we're getting a lot of other reports that oil tankers that historically would be traveling to the Strait of Hormuz or to the Gulf region in general to pick up oil are now instead changing their trajectories and heading straight for the Gulf of America. U.S. LNG and oil exports are booming, surging. That's the implication here. What they're telling you is that the implication is total economic collapse and an unaffordability crisis for the American people. But instead, what we're seeing is foreign oil-reliant nations now starting to purchase more energy from American producers.
We have more oil because of drill baby drill. We have more oil than Russia and Saudi Arabia put together. So if you look at Russia and Saudi Arabia, two big ones, we have much more oil than they have put together. And what's happening is boats are coming over here, filling up. We don't have to go through the Hormuz Strait.
Obviously, what we're seeing is another scare tactic. They want you to blink, but my eyes are propped open like clockwork freaking orange. I'm not blinking for a single second. I'm not scared of these despot Iranian thugs who've basically got nothing left.
Thank you for subscribing. Thank you. Let's grow.
Island. They've got homegrown militias forming too that are starting to hunt down besieged thugs in the streets. You got Saudi Arabia setting up the pipeline. You got oil traffic now moving to America. There's no reason to blink. And again, while the headlines seem so dramatic, the talks are essentially over. It's now an endless war. Well, we listen to the Pakistani mediators, and they're basically telling us that no negotiations have not ended, and there's still a back and forth going on. Now's not the time to give in. Well, the Iranian regime is a wounded animal. Now's the time to double the pressure, to simply continue the operation until they're absolutely left with no other choice. They thought J.D. Vance was going to go there to suffer humiliation, to fold, as if we're in a position looking for an off-ramp, as so many people have suggested over the last couple of weeks. Absolutely friggin' not. I don't know where they're getting their intelligence from, but obviously that was a pipe dream. And now in response, President Trump has called their bluff. It's now Iran's turn to respond to the U.S. blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. I think once again there's a major miscalculation here. Iran thinks that their strategy is applying pressure on us and the Western world at large, but all the pressure is on China, India, South Korea, and sure, a little bit on Europe. And of course, I think you can't argue that most of the pressure is on Iran. If they don't make the right decision, it could be cataclysmic for them. So like I've been saying, at some point, something's going to give. This is a regime that thinks itself a lot smarter than they actually are. This is a regime with no public support from the Iranian people, and that factor will continue to materialize. Trump's holding all the cards. Absolutely nothing has changed, and so there's no reason to give in to any demands. Or probably better said, there's no reason to give in to this
can do to stop it. Hey, gang! Armed Iran, buying Beijing permanent control over the Strait of Hormuz. Discounted oil flowing in secret, paid in yuan. A strategy decades in the making, designed to dethrone the American dollar and make Beijing the center of global power. But here's what nobody in the legacy media is connecting for you. China didn't build a fortress. It ended up building a trap. And President Trump just sprung it on two fronts simultaneously. Make sure to stick with me to the very end of this video, because we're going to see how what looks like a crisis is actually the most brilliant grand strategy any American president has executed in modern memory. And there's absolutely nothing Beijing can do to stop it. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Stevie Orr, Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button.
Subscribe.
You don't have time to watch the news 24/7. That's my job. Join my Patriot Alerts below, and I'll sift the news for you, send what actually matters, and tell you what it means for you and your family. Click on the link below right now. Let's start with China's moves, because Trump isn't the only one trying to play grand strategy chess here. So right now, U.S. intelligence has confirmed that China is actively preparing to deliver air defense systems and shoulder-fired man-pads, those are portable anti-aircraft missile launchers, to Iran, routed through third countries like Pakistan to obscure the origin of the weapons. And that's not all. Separate intelligence reporting reveals Chinese companies have been shipping chemicals, fuel, and dual-use military components directly to Iran to help rebuild the regime's battered military manufacturing capacity. Meanwhile, Beijing's official response to Trump's Hormuz blockade was to call it, quote, dangerous and irresponsible, declaring that they will honor all energy and trade commitments to Tehran and warning Washington against, quote, external interference. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov flew to Beijing for emergency talks to coordinate a united front against this blockade, with Moscow calling it, quote, maritime extortion. Trump, for his part, responded by threatening 50% tariffs on any nation found arming Iran, most especially China. So they're arming our enemies, they're running diplomatic interference, they're calling our blockade illegal, and they're doing everything they can to try to thwart our efforts in the Middle East. And yet, what seems to elude Chinese officials, what they have yet to process, is that every single move they just made actually walked them deeper into a trap. So let's make sure we understand how all the pieces are placed on the international chessboard here. China is the world's single largest importer of oil on the planet, bar none. They currently import approximately 10 million barrels per day. And by 2030, they're going to depend on foreign sources for as much as 80% of their total oil consumption. Now, here's the number that should make Beijing wake up in a cold sweat. Roughly 80% of China's oil imports pass through a single narrow waterway. And it's not the Strait of Hormuz. It's the Strait of Malacca. It's a 2-mile wide channel of water between Malaysia and the Indonesian island of Sumatra. Over 90,000 ships squeeze through this artery every single year. And for natural gas, approximately 41% of Chinese imports transit the same choke point. This is what Chinese strategists call, and they coined this term themselves, the Malacca dilemma. And it goes all the way back to the early 2000s, when President Hu Jintao himself identified this as China's chief strategic vulnerability and publicly warned about it in a number of his speeches. He was right to worry, because there are 3 nations that control the Strait of Malacca: Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Now, Singapore is already a rock-solid U.S. ally. Malaysia has been moving closer and closer to Washington's orbit for years. And Indonesia? Well, that's where this story just got very, very interesting. But first, gang, let's face it. You had a number in your head, right? The number you thought would be enough to retire. And then the price of life went up and up and up. And now the question isn't whether you saved, it's whether what you saved could still buy the retirement you planned for. I mean, think about what's happening right now. War flaring up, oil spikes, and then everything gets higher. Gas, groceries, insurance, bills. We've seen this before. We're watching a structural shift in the global economy where inflation isn't temporary, it's embedded. And historically, when that happens, purchasing power doesn't recover, it erodes. Your dollar buys less, your savings carry less, and people who are counting down to retirement, they start wondering if they got to push it back, all because the cost of living moved the finish line. That was my wake-up call. I knew quietly hosted Indonesian Defense Minister Shafri Samsudin in the Pentagon. And what they announced was a major defense cooperation partnership between the United States and Indonesia. The partnership has 3 pillars. 1, military modernization capacity building. 2, training and professional military education. And 3, regional exercises and operational cooperation. And woven into this agreement is Indonesia granting U.S. military aircraft, quote, blanket overflight access across the whole of Indonesian airspace, which includes the southern bank of the Strait of Malacca. U.S. aircraft with overflight rights over Indonesia means that American eyes and American firepower are now positioned directly above the single most critical energy choke point in China's entire global economic architecture. And this is so key. We now have effective control over the most important shipping lane in the world, linking the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea without deploying a single ground troop, without firing a single shot, without triggering a single international incident, just a handshake at the Pentagon, and suddenly the Malacca dilemma goes from a theoretical vulnerability to a very real one. It's pure jujitsu. China spent decades worried about the scenario, and Trump made it real while the world wasn't even looking. Now, I want you to connect the dots here because this is where it's absolutely stunning. We now have the United States controlling, or at least able to control, both of the choke points that China's economy completely depends on. Hormuz is locked. China was getting 40% of its Persian Gulf oil through that strait. That tap has effectively been turned off, at least when it comes to Iran. That's 20% of China's oil. Every day the blockade holds is another day China's industrial machine it's running hotter, it's paying more, it's scrambling for alternatives. And then Malacca, that's the other 80%. It is now effectively under American surveillance and strategic influence through our new Indonesian partnership. China's alternatives are pitiful by comparison. In fact, Beijing has been trying to solve the Malacca dilemma for 20 years. And the answer every time comes back the same. There is no solution. The geography simply doesn't allow it. And now with Indonesia in Washington's corner, that dilemma has become, for China, a strategic nightmare. But remember, this is 5D chess that Trump is playing here. It gets even better because Trump isn't just threatening China's energy supply. He's recalibrating the entire global energy market around the United States. Here's what the maritime tracking data is showing us right now. 172 empty crude oil tankers are currently en route to the Gulf of America, reflecting a tidal wave shift in global crude flows toward the United States as the new stable export anchor for the world. That includes a 132% increase in tanker arrivals via the southern corridor from Asia and the Gulf. The buyers who couldn't get their oil through Hormuz went west. They came to us, American crude, American LNG, American energy. And China, which was getting its discounted sanctioned Iranian oil for pennies on the dollar, paid in yuan, is now being forced in a
good morning, like and subscribe. Good morning, good morning.
Back to U.S. crude and LNG imports, with tracking data showing approximately 600,000 barrels per day of American crude going to China, worth close to $10 billion a month at current prices. We are literally, as a nation, swimming in money right now. It's absolutely extraordinary. Iran was China's back channel energy pipeline. Cheap, off the books, de-dollarized. That pipeline is gone. And the world is now recalibrating around the Gulf of America. All the while, the other major oil exporters, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and of course, Venezuela.
Happy Tuesday, Brian. Happy Tuesday. Good morning. Good morning.
Aligned suppliers. All of it transacted in US dollars through US anchored markets. China wanted de-dollarization. What they got was re-dollarization on steroids. So let's step back and gaze at the complete architecture of what Trump has built here. In this new world order, as it were, in the very dynamics of international relations, America gets increasingly stronger, all the while our adversaries are primed to get increasingly weaker. America gets stronger, our adversaries get weaker. That's the new dynamic that's built into the system, the architecture that Trump is creating. America gets stronger militarily every single day with new partnerships, new forward positions, a carrier strike group dominating Hormuz, and now overflight rights above Malacca. America gets stronger economically every day, with global energy demand surging toward U.S. oil, U.S. LNG, U.S. workers, U.S. dollars. And our adversaries at the same time, Iran and China, they get increasingly weaker together. Iran losing its last card in Hormuz, China losing its energy security. Both of them watching the dollar they tried to kill become more essential.
State of play as it is right now. President Trump said that Iran is already blinking. So will the regime come back to the negotiating table? It's been reported, but not confirmed. So we'll stand by and all that. Good morning, everybody.
This is 20 minutes ago. 20 minutes ago.
A lot's happening. I'm Bill Hemmer.
Good morning. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. You have some news?
A little bit. Just got off the phone with the senior official with the administration.
Thank you.
What I can tell you is that, quote, a lot is happening today and tomorrow. We have all the ingredients for a deal, but it's not all there yet, which goes a little bit along the lines of what J.D. Vance was saying last night with Brett. The blockade with regard to Iran has Iran, quote, really fearful, which chokes off their economy. So watch that now with the U.S. Navy trying to interdict any ships passing in the Strait of Hormuz, Gulf of Oman, up into the Persian Gulf. So
all right.
It's a little bit of something.
A little bit more. Okay, and we'll get you to this. The president turning up the heat after peace talks with Iran ended without a deal over the weekend. So he's promising to put more pressure where it really hurts, and that's on their economy. We're tracking the U.S. blockade and control over the strategic waterway. This is a live look of ship movement there. More than 15 U.S. warships are now reportedly enforcing those maritime restrictions that apply to all vessel traffic, regardless of the flag.
Also, Dana, after returning home from talks in Pakistan, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, laying out the state of play as it is right now.
I think the Iranians are going to determine what happens next. As the President of the United States says, we have the cards. We have the military advantage. We now have additional economic pressure that we're applying on them through the blockade that we've imposed on their oil coming out of the Straits of Hormuz. So we have a lot of cards. We have the leverage, and we're going to see what the Iranians do with that.
Aisha Hasni, live at the White House with more to kick us off. Hi, Aisha.
Hey, good morning to you guys. So President Trump says Iran wants to make a deal very badly. And adding to your reporting here, Bill, several reports out today that we could see a second round of talks negotiations as early as later this week. In fact, last night, Vice President J.D. Vance sat down with our Brett Baer and told him that he actually thinks they were not able to cut a deal with Iran in Pakistan over the weekend because the Iranian negotiators had to
Make
go
Kamala
back to
sober
Tehran
again. That's a good one.
approval
Good
for
one.
the terms set by the U.S. So basically, they couldn't say yes on the spot in Pakistan. So now we wait.
Good morning, Paul.
And really, the ball is very much in their court. So you ask what happens next. I think the Iranians are going to determine what happens next. As the President of the United States says, we have the cards. We have the military advantage. We now have additional economic pressure that we're applying on them through the blockade that we've imposed on their oil coming out of the Straits of Hormuz.
So let's talk about the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports. The BBC this morning is reporting that 4 Iranian-linked ships crossed the strait today, 2 of them visiting Iranian ports. We do not have that independently confirmed. We have reached out to the Pentagon to find out if that is true.
Good morning,
but again, that's
morning.
coming from the BBC today. China is calling Trump's blockade, quote, dangerous. The president actually meets with his ambassador to China later on today. He is warning Beijing that he will hit them with a staggering 50% tariff if China is caught sending Iran military aid. We are also tracking major ceasefire talks today between the Israeli and Lebanon ambassadors. It's hosted by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. These are the highest level talks between these two nations in some 3 decades. So all eyes on those talks happening today as well. But as you said, Bill, a lot happening, a lot moving this week.
Aisha Hasni at the White House for us. Thank you.
All right, so Dana, we'll go to the map, let you know what we believe the state of play is right now. Strait of Hormuz, okay? Keep in mind, this is the Emirates, UAE, this is Oman, and this is Iran across the Strait of Hormuz. Now, on this map here, what you see, all these red dots, there are anywhere between 16 and 32 ports that the Iranians operate either here in the Persian Gulf or out here in the Gulf of Oman. And these would be some of the ports that the U.S. Navy would try and interdict in this blockade.
Like and subscribe. Like and
I
subscribe.
showed you this yesterday. I want to go back to it yet again, okay? In the yellow marker here, I can show you what the Iranians want to happen and what the normal trade has been. This is the normal shipping route, right? It goes over the tip of Oman here, United Arab Emirates here, Iran is over here. And this is what the Iranians want around this island here, all right? That's called Larak, L-A-R-A-K. And that's what the Iranians would like to see happen. However, what we're seeing right now with this bottleneck here in the Strait of Hormuz, there is a handful of ships going through. What we're trying to show you here are 4 Chinese-linked vessels. Some carry oil, some do not, all right? 4 different ones here. Once the blockade was set up, they were en route, all right, to the island of Larak and then turned around. Same for these 2 over here, but there was one report from overnight. Lauren Simonetti from Fox Business had it. This is the Rich Starry track, okay? You see it in yellow? It came through here, it paused, and then overnight it did traverse the Strait of Hormuz. So that's one, okay, as that blockade continues. So here's the marine traffic we've been looking at. You see all the red dots, all the green dots? On the screen behind me, again, this is Oman, here's UAE, this is Iran up here, and that's that island I've been referring to up there at the top of your screen. Everything in red you see, that is an ocean-carrying vessel that has either oil or oil products. Everything in green is cargo. But you see the logjam here off the coast of UAE and also here off the coast of Oman? They've been sitting there now for several weeks. Now, if the U.S. Navy were to interdict a ship at sea, this is basically what happens. These are the rules of the sea now. You issue the warning, the ship is boarded, the papers are checked. If they pass, they're okay. If they don't, we might have issues. The ship then could be boarded and searched, and finally it's detained, it's rerouted, or eventually it is released. Those are the laws of the sea right now for the U.S. Navy. Retired U.S. Navy Commander Kirk Lippel with me now, former commander of the USS Cole. And sir, it's great to have you on today. What are we missing in this story?
Bill.
What do we need to understand?
I think the big picture, Bill, that you need to look at is the Navy putting in a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and Iran ports is a very complicated operation. It takes a lot of ships to do it. There's a lot of territory to cover. And we have the horses that if you do decide, as you mentioned with those law of the sea points, is that they're going to have to stop these vessels, check these vessels, and you're going to have a team go on that is literally prepared for anything that may occur, because we cannot trust any of these vessels, especially those that are Iranian.
Can I ask you about all those ships?
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I'm just maybe it's a dumb question, but how do they have supplies in order to handle all of that?
Well, Dana, great question, because a lot of them have a limited number of supplies, and now a lot of the seafarers are very concerned about the fact that they need to be sustained out there. The ship owners are worried, how are we going to get supplies? How are we going to get food? How are we going to get routine maintenance parts done to all those ships as they sit and wait, both in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman? So I think the Navy is sensitive to that. They're working with our partners in the region, with those countries, Saudi Arabia, Oman, UAE, to make sure that these vessels can, in fact, get some of the support that they need, that those mariners can be taken care of from all these different countries around the world. But at the end of the day, we, the U.S. Navy, have to hold Iran accountable for what they have done. Bring them back to the negotiating table, keep the pressure on with them, because this is going to cost the Iranian regime $13 billion a month in order to make sure that we can keep that blockade up. They do not get the economic support they need. Their economy was already staggering when it began. So while there is an impact on all these ships that are waiting, and by the way, it's not a dumb question, it was a good question, they have to be supported, and the United States is working back channel to make sure that happens.
So you would agree with what I just quoted a few moments ago, when this official said this blockade, Iran is really fearful because it chokes off their economy. I was talking with Brian a short time ago. This is a game of chess. And each player is making a move. I think sometimes on a 24-hour basis, it's check, it's check, it's check, and that's what we're seeing play out. Do you see it that way, sir?
Absolutely, Bill. As a matter of fact, I think that the United States is even thinking further beyond that. it's not only the immediate pressing it now, it's also what happens if the Iranians do come to the negotiating table. They agree to the 4 key points: that no nuclear program or centrifuges, no support for the proxies, opening up the Strait of Hormuz, and continuing to support the main points that Trump laid out. I think when you look at all of those, we're looking ahead to figure out how are we actually going to execute those and make them happen. So it's chess, but it's also a long-range game as well, because at the end of the day, the Iranian regime needs to be brought to its knees and realize that it cannot be trusted. This is no longer about trust and verify. This is about they have lied, they have obfuscated, and they have murdered for 47 years. It is their actions that are going to count when they come to the negotiating table.
It's also a game of risk. And President Trump yesterday talked about other countries possibly helping.
Absolutely.
Is it your anticipation, Mr. President, that other countries will assist in this effort to blockade Iran and those?
Yeah, other countries are going to also. We don't need other countries, frankly, but they've offered the services. We'll let it be known probably tomorrow.
So those are the countries that are helping, but I'm curious your thoughts about China in particular and how they might be weighing in behind the scenes with the Iranians.
I think there's 2 things, Dana, that we need to be very careful with China. Number one, they have supported them militarily. The biggest threat that probably remains as well, and it's been brought up on other shows, is the fact that China has an incredible cyber warfare capability.
Underballs.
So
hey, good morning, Underballs.
The fact that they may be sharing some of that is also going to be due cause. You also have to remember when it comes to how the Strait of
based on the time zone, good
as
afternoon.
an international waterway.
It's 11:31 for my time zone. 11:31.
The same is happening with China in the South China Sea, where Iran surrounded the Middle East with proxy groups. China has, in violation of international law, has militarized 9 and about to be 10 with Adelo Brief, 10 islands in the South China Sea that have the same capability to cut off maritime traffic throughout that entire region. China is watching what the United States and the world is doing there.
4 weeks from a summit. Last point here. I don't know if you saw Jerry Baker in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. He had a blistering editorial where he essentially made the case that this administration is ad-libbing this war. Do you agree with that? Or do you see more of an imagination that's necessary depending on what your enemy, your adversary does?
I would absolutely disagree with it. I think that they have had war plans on the shelf for years, both at Central Command and with Commander of the Fifth Fleet. They are now exercising those. But as in any conflict, I mean, it's like Mike
I'm
Tyson
Illinois.
said, you always have a
I
plan.
live in Illinois, Rockford, Illinois. It's my time in
The
Rockford.
reality is we went in, we tried to get the Iranian regime to comply and be able to give up their nuclear program. At the end of the day, they did not do that, and we are adjusting to do this. Adjusting in the middle of a conflict is normal operations. You have to be flexible to be able to support their ongoing operations, but also think strategically about what are the impacts going.
We are loading up the ships with the best ammunition, the best weapons ever made, even better than what we did previously, and we blew them apart.
So, as the negotiations with Iran's regime remnants fell apart, the United States wasn't just sitting around. In fact, it's been loading up, rearming, and regrouping, transforming into an even more destructive force, while kicking off a total blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. But Iran must not be paying attention because they're still playing games with the world's economy, threatening to attack any ships, even U.S. ships that get too close, which has a lot of observers saying that Iran
No problem, boss. No problem.
stupid games are about to win them the stupidest prize of all.
With no deal in place, there are questions about if and when the war could resume. There are still disagreements over the Strait of Hormuz and Iranian uranium enrichment. We're now starting the process of clearing out the Strait of Hormuz as a favor to countries all over the world.
It's really hard to find a mine even when you lay it yourself. So I don't expect too much out of the Iranians. I'm pretty sure they're just doing indiscriminate mining with whatever they could.
Earlier on Friday, Trump was clear on the deal he was after.
No nuclear weapons. You know, I think it's already been regime change, but we never had that as a criteria. No nuclear weapon. That's 99% of it.
Incredibly, they don't have the courage or will to do this work themselves. U.S. Central Command says that American ships started a mine clearing operation on Saturday to clear the waterway. This included 2 U.S. destroyers passing through the strait.
I don't trust the Iranians at all. The president doesn't trust them either. He's negotiated with them time and time again. He knows they're liars and cheats, and he knows the value of Cargalon. He knows full well he can take control of it or he can destroy it.
You know, it's pretty hard to understand how some people don't get that an oil exporting regime will cease to exist if you take over their oil supply. But what nobody's talking about is the Iranians. They are such bad faith negotiators that the now ongoing blockade of this entire region may have just been the game plan all along. And some are saying this negotiation and ceasefire was just cover for what's about to happen next, which could also include anything from a simultaneous strike on Iran's bridges and power plants, plunging the country into the dark ages, or an occupation of their economic lifeline, Karg Island. But here's what's so fascinating. Iran has been negotiating with various U.S. presidents for almost 50 years, and we just set up a new round of talks that went the same way as the last talks, and apparently the regime walked into this thinking the U.S. was bluffing.
But I can tell you that regional sources say the Iranians made a major mistake at the negotiating table. They believed that the United States would fold. And obviously, the Trump administration went in with very clear objectives, and the Iranians were unwilling to meet those objectives, namely their nuclear program and getting rid of that enriched uranium.
That's right. Things fell apart because Iran has no intention of giving up their nuclear ambitions. They will not fold, and they're hoping everybody else does first, which is why they're attacking the world economy, so that they can have their cake and eat it too, and toll the strait, and sow mayhem, and get people in the United States and other countries to rise up against the president. A plan which they think is going to work. But that brings us to the real reason there's now a blockade, and all of this is happening. You see, the president, he's given these guys.
No new wars, we get it. But for 47 years, we keep hearing the same thing, death to America. No, so Trump did the right thing. Not giving them money like Obama did. No, get rid of that. Stop all the BS, bomb their ass, you know what I'm saying, and make the prices of oil and gas go down. And that's what Trump is doing. Not right away, but in the long term, it's going to be that way. This is what I voted for. Common sense. Adults are back in the room. Like and subscribe. Name is Deunta.
Guys, this regime every opportunity to lay down their arms and peacefully surrender and end this whole thing, and they have rejected all of it, forcing the United States to do what's going to happen next. And what we're witnessing now is a rearrangement of the global chessboard, so to speak, in a manner that every single nation hostile to regime collapse in this despotic dictatorship is now completely afraid of, worrying if their fragile economies will be able to survive at all without regime exported oil, or the dangerous status quo that's propped these guys up for a long time and dictated world policy which has been anti-American for decades, but is now about to change.
Hundreds of super tankers are headed to the Gulf of America.
I done showed clips after clips since I've been going live how Obama, Biden, Hillary Clinton, even Bill Clinton all said that Iran needs to be taken down. Slow down, take him down, take him out. Now Trump does it, it's an issue. You have 4 different people saying the same thing. Now Trump acts on it, now it's a problem. Stop with the TDS.
To buy oil and gas from the U.S. What can you tell us about that, sir?
Well, I can tell you that it used to be called the Gulf of Mexico. That's what I can tell you. Now it's called the Gulf of America because of me. One of my little things that I did, one of my little sidelines.
Right, so America's got plenty of oil. It's all for sale. Come on and buy it. And you know something? A blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, it doesn't do anything to world oil supplies. The oil's out there. It's just on our side of the planet, not that side of the planet any longer. And this is nightmare news.
Right, it's the Democrats that make us look weak. They want to take care of the illegals and enrich themselves. Take care of America.
News for everybody who wanted to see this regime stay intact. Because as you're about to see, not only does no oil pretty much ensure these despots can no longer
Gulf of America, baby. Missiles, Gulf of America. That was a smart way to do it. Smart name.
It also means everybody who was propping them up now has to prop up a different country, who some would say the socialists and communists governing various regimes on this planet hate even more than Iran. Watch this.
It isn't about toppling Iran's regime before you ask. It's about reshaping.
Yeah, most of the presidents are Freemasons. That's obvious.
That's happening right now. I want to tell you how Britain is staring down the barrel of a dark age we haven't seen for over 1,000 years. It's not actually being kept from us. We're just blind to seeing it because nobody's talking about it. America has made no secret of its new doctrine. It is stepping back from being the world's police and repositioning itself as a powerful, self-reliant fortress.
Oh, and that is bad news for everybody that wants us to be reliant on the rest of the world so that they can give themselves a leg up over
Subscribe if you guys haven't. Let's grow together. 1825.
Also perfectly explains why various countries like the United Kingdom and France have been very reluctant to have anything to do with the Strait because they do not like what is about to happen. They don't want America to be self-sufficient. They don't want America to not need them. They want NATO. They want these entanglements that bring American interests.
So which claim are you talking about? What claim?
Other sides of the planet for reasons that do not affect us domestically. And all of that is about to change. And when it changes, the leverage that these countries thought they've had over our country not only go away, but their economies might disappear along with it. This is fascinating, and this has never happened before.
Why President Trump has drawn a new strategic map from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal and its surrounding countries.
Greenland.
At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America.
Interesting stuff, isn't it? So what does America actually gain from this war before we get onto the Greater North America? Well, let's look at a map here, shall we? I'll bring this up for you. The Strait of Hormuz, you can see there, is one of the most critical energy choke points on this planet. It is all...
And look at where the oil from it goes. It goes to countries that do not necessarily have the best interests of America in mind. Look at that. Now, if these countries had to buy their oil from the United States instead of from this area,
to be in the face of American people saying for numerous administrations, Iran is a problem. They have to be dealt with. Iran is a problem. They have to be dealt with.
I strongly believe that our national security interest now depends upon preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
Well, I can say to you, Iran will never get a nuclear weapon on my watch.
And then this man deals with them, and then all of a sudden you're complaining about him now. Right. It doesn't really make sense.
Well, they might have to be a little nicer with us, wouldn't they? And the big problem here is that by using energy, the United States would now have diplomatic leverage it's never had before, which will avert wars and lead to peace, something NATO is supposed to do but was never able to do because it wasn't set up to do that in the first place, which explains why nobody wants to come get their oil out of this place. They can't, they won't, even though they benefit from it, but all that's now about to change.
A whopping 45% of China's oil flowing through it. That is a lot of oil that China needs.
Oh, they're going to be our friend now.
It isn't just Iran. Cast your minds back to January this year, where Trump effectively has now captured Venezuela and declared its oil is under their control. And if you have a look at this graph, who there in the red relies heavily on that oil?
Look at this. So you've got China and Europe and India and Cuba and a whole bunch of countries that are wholly dependent on oil.
And this is the hypocrisy from the Democrats on Trump is crazy.
What the are you saying? It's the most bizarre headline. I figure you're saying that the president did not need authorization initially and still does not need any authorization from Congress on Libya?
Yes. The hypocrisy from the Democrats on Trump.
That doesn't come from the United States. They need this to run their economies. You got places like the United Kingdom where they're importing all of their oil because they don't have any of their own. They're not allowed to get it because their laws stop them. So you have this type of system. And what does this system do? Allowing countries that are supposed to be friends with the United States to do business with their enemies just compromises them. It compromises arrangements like NATO, and it compromises the willpower of these countries to help the United States when we need it most. We're in a conflict, and we want to use our own bases in their countries to fly to another country and do something that protects the entire world, which is getting rid of a despotic regime that wants to have nuclear long-range weapons and threaten all of us.
And Europe is also getting hit hard a lot with this. With Russian energy totally off the table and domestic energy security weakened by this leftist obsession with net zero, Europe is becoming increasingly dependent on external oil supply and energy supply. And that puts America, again, in a very strong position because we will soon be wholly dependent on American supplies of oil and gas.
Which drives them absolutely insane. All these European leaders that like to talk down to America and tell us how stupid we are and tell us how reckless our president is and tell us that we've just lost it and that we're just a bunch of idiots and we should just do as they say. Well, now they're going to have to change their attitude because they now need something from the United States in addition to military protection from Russia, who they were buying oil and gas from prior to the Ukraine conflict, which just propped up that regime. Isn't that interesting? Now they can't do that anymore. That's right. The ability of our allies to team up with our enemies secretly or economically is now off the table. And as you're about to see, this is going to be a great thing for world peace and world prosperity. It's just going to make people really upset that they've got to admit that Trump's right and that they need something from him. Oh, that's driving them so crazy. They probably can't sleep at night on the other side of the pond.
They will dictate terms and use energy as leverage, not just economically, but geopolitically too. And what do we know that they really want? Greenland.
Yeah.
They want Greenland. They've made that very clear and they didn't get it yet. So the longer this war drags on, the more dependent the world is becoming on the USA. And it's not accidental. What we're seeing is the emergence of what you heard from Pete Hegseth there, the Secretary of State for War, and described by Donald Trump as the Greater North America. It is stretching.
All of this right here is going to dictate the world going forward because this area of the planet has the one thing the entire world wants, and if that thing, oil, comes from some other part of the world, well, this landmass here, the people here, now control that. That's why the Strait of Hormuz blockade is such a big deal. That's why this conflict in Iran is such a big deal. It's basically exposed the world economy. It's exposed how fragile this whole system was because it's been based on the idea that evil regimes are also selling this resource to countries that are supposed to have democracies and be in favor of peace and prosperity. And it's strengthened people who threatened their neighbors. It's strengthened people who wanted to invade Taiwan or to invade Ukraine. Something we all say should never happen. We all have said, oh yeah, Iran, they should never be able to have a nuclear weapon. Oh yeah, it'd be bad news if China invaded Taiwan. Well, why do we allow systems to exist that enable these countries to plan things like that? We shouldn't do that at all. And now we're going to stop. It's going to have to stop because everybody's got to come here to get the thing that they would need to continue some war of aggression. And Europe is furious about it.
Greenland down through the Panama Canal, securing the entire hemisphere as a self-sufficient economic and security zone for the United States.
They were the last two presidents. That's why you got to bring them up. The last two presidents F it all up. They're going to bring Obama and Biden up, period. Biden let the border open. And Obama picked him as vice president. And people that was Democrat voted for Biden because he was Democrat. So it all, you know what I'm saying, all connects. That's why I keep bringing them up.
Future plans as it withdraws from the world.
They are, but...
And it isn't just a coincidence that the United Kingdom has been targeted the most by Trump and America of late. The UK is internationally renowned for its special relationship with America. Trump is signaling that relationship is over, not just to us, but to everyone else around us. And frankly, Keir Starmer gave him ample reason to do so, of course.
There it is.
But also because Trump can now point to our allies and say, you all let us down. And in his own words, as he said,
really, Zach, he being naive, man.
So this isn't about a grudge. You see, these nations that were allowing a dangerous status quo to exist and arguing every time an American
some things don't have to show. You already know, Zach.
These are the very countries that refused to help the United States. And that shows you what type of relationship we have. If we need someone's help and we're paying for troops to be over where they're at, protecting them, and then they won't even let us use our own bases where those troops are stationed to fly missions that are in pursuit of the goal of world peace and world harmony and protecting people and freeing the citizens of Iran from a despotic regime while protecting people in America. If they're not going to do that, if they're not going to allow that, if they're not going to get on board, what type of alliance is that? Are they going to come to our aid if we get invaded by China? I mean, probably not. Definitely not. They can't. They can't even get their own oil.
It is the perfect reason for America to withdraw.
And that's Zach, and he's bringing up some stuff that makes no sense about the border, not being about the border.
Just to fortify
crazy.
resource-rich power base that others have no choice but to rely on.
Now, what do the people who are opposed to all of this tell us? They tell us that Trump is some sort of colonist, and he wants another George W. Bush, Iraq, another Afghanistan. He wants another foreign war disaster. That's what the enemies of this are telling us, both the external enemies and the domestic enemies, the politicians that say, oh, this president's lost and he doesn't know what he's doing. But he's actually doing the opposite of what they want. He's actually setting up a system where the United States never has to go to war again, as long as we maintain commitments to our
Subscribe. You guys have it. Subscribe.
Control all of this energy infrastructure. Controlling this energy infrastructure is going to mean Taiwan, the invasion of Taiwan, which is going to cost tons of oil. Well, that's going to be off the table because the oil to do it's not going to be there. Yet Taiwan is going to have plenty of oil to defend itself. You see how this works? There's a massive rejiggering of the deck chairs on the sinking ship that was the world economy that had all of these regimes propping themselves up. And the people who are losing their power are the ones throwing a hissy fit.
Is the new America. And that brings us to Britain, because the consequences for us will be catastrophic. Right now, we are dangerously exposed. We have no energy security. We import around 60% of our food. We have no major industry. Our military is decimated, as we're hearing time and time again. And politically, we are deeply fractured now. Unless we act quickly and decisively, Britain risks entering a dark age as America retreats, one that we haven't seen for over 1,000.
So I don't think this will necessarily be bad for Britain. Look at the position they're in here. They have no energy security. They import their food. They don't have any major industries. Look, all they've got to...
Of course I take responsibility. I'm president, but it was horrible to see, as you saw. To see people.
Another immigration confrontation at the U.S. southern border. Thousands of Haitian migrants, a mass concern for the Biden administration.
Of course I take responsibility. I'm president, but it was horrible to see, as you saw. To see people treated like they did.
While challenges remain at the southern border, thousands of Afghan refugees are entering the United States. The president campaigned on changing immigration policies.
Is play ball with the United States. They're
So, what you talking about, Zach?
Capitalism in America could feed the entire world if it were allowed to do so. And you know something? This idea that they have no energy security, well, that's a problem they can fix domestically. They've got resources over there. They're not allowed to go after it. But if they don't want to do that, they can buy from us. Why should they be buying oil? While asking that the United States keep the Strait of Hormuz open so they can get oil from some other part of the world. Why should that be allowed?
Yeah, Zach gaslighting now, man. He's tripping.
And some people are saying that when the United States walked into these talks with Iran, we knew that they were going to collapse. We just walked into them to basically
You a clown, Zach.
our reaction from
You
these
definitely was a
despots
clown.
refusing to let go of their nuclear ambitions.
Promised to open the Strait of Hormuz, and they knowingly failed to do so, the president writes. This caused anxiety, dislocation, and pain to many people and countries throughout the world. They say they put mines in the water, even though all of their Navy and most of their mine droppers have been completely blown up. So there you have it. The meeting went well. Most points were agreed to, but the only point that really mattered, nuclear, was not.
Yep.
Effective immediately, the president states, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. At some point, we will reach an all being allowed to go in, all being allowed to go out basis, but Iran has not allowed that to happen.
Now, here's why this is so interesting, because the last thing sustaining Iran is their ability to export oil, their ability to sell it and to bring money in, and their ability to play games with the world economy, to toll ships that are in the strait. But now that that's gone, they have no choice but to negotiate, or their economy collapses. And if their economy collapses, the regime collapses, and then it can be rebuilt. Hopefully that doesn't happen. And the whole point of these negotiations was to make sure that it wouldn't happen. But it seems like the leaders of this place are dead set on that being the end result. So here we go. Now the blockade starts. At the same time, why is it okay for criminals to have control over the world economy and to use that as a position from which to threaten the free world? Why is that okay? How is that a good thing for Europe if the globe doesn't reorder behind the United States and it stays ordered behind regimes and criminals? How's that a good thing? I don't think it is.
Merely saying there may be a mine out there somewhere that nobody knows about but them. This is world extortion.
and leaders of countries, especially
How's that
the
good for
United States
Europe?
of America, will never be extradited.
Right. How's that good for
I
them?
have
It's
also
not.
instructed our Navy to seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid a toll to Iran. No one who pays an illegal toll will have safe passage on the high seas. We will also begin destroying the mines the Iranians laid in the straits. Any Iranian who fires at us or at peaceful vessels will be blown.
So, if Trump reopens this strait, which is what's going to happen here with the U.S. military, now the U.S. controls the whole environment. Now this whole reordering takes place. And I've got a question for you. There are people who are so mad about this, who say that America is destroying everything. These are greedy people. It's all about money. It's all about profits. But, you know, that's what it's about for the criminals, too. And they're using their position where they are in this geographic location to threaten the entire world. How is that a good thing? Why do we want that? I don't think we do want that. And I don't think the world could have a better solution.
Zach, instead of trying to pick an argument in the chat with me, just listen to the video. You know what I'm saying? See what's going on. Listen to what's going on. You want to pick an argument, everybody in the chat. Just listen to what's going on.
On the table, because if China or if Russia were to take over this area, if they controlled all of the world's oil, what do you think they would do with it? The United States isn't trying to invade Ukraine and take it over. The United States isn't trying to invade Taiwan and take it over. The United States isn't secretly building weapons of mass destruction with the intent to likely use them against their neighbors or against those they claim they want to destroy. That's not something America's trying to do. America retreating? It's not actually retreating. America's just swapping a bunch of troops in places like Germany and Japan for the ability to cut off any country's oil supply.
That's all.
And it exposes how deep the rot is on the Welcome to Politbrawl. My name is Brian, and Pete Buttigieg gets completely exposed by Joe Kernan on his own show, no less, and it exposes how deep the rot is on the Democrat Party. Let's dive in.
I believe the president started this war because he wanted to. And now we're in a situation where you've got a war that we didn't need to have. Iran has enormous leverage now. Certainly their military has been degraded. But let's be very clear about why the president backed down. Why did the president back down from his demand?
Like and subscribe, everybody. Like and subscribe. As you can see, what I'm giving you guys is gold. I'm not giving you random BS. It's all connected, different point of views, but the same topic. Like and subscribe.
Let's start with
why is the president taking a weaker position than he started with?
Let's start with just the prospect of the war to begin with.
Yeah.
Look, the argument that he started this because he wanted to, there are plenty of people who think there is a very real threat of nuclear. It was presented through intelligence. Israel had an opportunity to really take and strike at this point. And as for diplomacy, that was sunsetting anyway. Anything?
Well, it wasn't sunsetting. It was detonated by the first Trump
but it was going to.
If gas price is high and groceries high, I bet the ones that complain are the ones on SNAP benefits. Those ones must be the ones complaining about anything. The ones that ain't working. Because I'm not complaining.
Sunset if it hadn't already.
They were lying about everything.
Right. The idea of they had much longer range missiles.
Get off this Section 8 and SNAP benefits.
We've seen all of that play out.
But the point is, they had been stopped from getting anywhere near a nuclear weapon. And last year, the president assured us that he ended their nuclear ambitions. If he wants to come clean with the American people that he failed to do that, then he has to say that before he launches the war.
Democrats at that time said, no, you haven't. And then you haven't.
Clearly he hadn't. Yeah.
Clearly that he hadn't. So then we needed to go back and take care of it, unless you really think it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
But again, they don't have a nuclear weapon. They weren't about to get a nuclear weapon.
How do you know? Why do you keep saying they weren't about to get it? Steve Witkoff said they had enough visible material for 11 bombs.
So you were
Zach, I don't have to worry about that. I've been working all my life. 43 years old. I have no complaints. I got trades, and I'm a YouTuber. I'm good. I work.
The president lied when he said that
I don't know what he did. No one knew what happened at Florida.
Either he didn't know or he was lying.
Okay.
Which is it?
Is that really the point? Whether or not
the point isn't my neighbor's Michigan and paying more for gas.
He knew it was obliterated or not is not the point. If it wasn't obliterated, then you have to do something. You can't go back and say, well, you lied about this, so that we can't actually do what we we need to do.
Joe, America is weaker because the president launched this war.
That's your opinion. That's not.
No, but it's clear, and I'll tell you why. Because
We had
when
the
Trump
Secretary of NATO say the world is a safer place. He just said that yesterday.
His job is to butter up the president. But why do you think the president chickened out on his demand? Why do you think the president backed off of his demand? The president
backed off of which demand?
Unconditional surrender. Right now, instead of unconditional surrender, which was the president.
Didn't this man take a leave of absence because his man had a baby or something like that with this guy here? Y'all tell me in the chat. Didn't this man step down for 6 months or 6 weeks because of the baby? I don't know.
This is not over yet. This is not over yet. Number one.
Is this unconditional surrender?
I don't know what it's going to end up being.
I'll tell you what we've got.
If the strait reopens again and they have no Navy.
So the best case scenario is the strait being open. The strait was open before he started this.
Yeah, Trenton, good morning. Good afternoon, Trenton. Good afternoon, Trenton.
We had other ways of dealing.
Like what? Obama's way?
That worked?
That did not work.
Did they get a nuclear weapon under Obama?
They were close enough within months.
No. And the president, again, assured us the whole point of bombing them last year was to, quote unquote, obliterate the nuclear program.
I understand that.
And look, I'm saying this as somebody who knows what it's like to be sent to war by a U.S. president. And when a president sends you to war, when you and your buddies are on that gray tail plane going into a war zone, you do it with some level of confidence, some level of assurance that your chain of command.
Now that we're there, doesn't even sound like this. Now that we're there, do you hope this has a successful outcome? There were 40,000 Iranians that were slaughtered by the same regime. 47 years of killing Americans, stirring trouble all around the world.
And how do you feel about that regime being left intact by this president?
I don't know if that's going to be the case, and I don't know what might happen.
Is that an argument?
Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you.
It was just a bad move. You want us to pull out now?
Well, look, there's no obvious way out now, but I want to make sure that this ends in a way that, first of all, our economy can recover, that we're not paying so much for gas. I mean, right now, oil's $100, jet fuel's $200, gas is over $4, diesel's like
$5.50. $3.80 under Biden for 4 years.
Yeah, and when we left, inflation was lower than it is today.
You accounted for 21.5% pricing.
This president took the inflation rate up. This president took the inflation rate up. It's more than 3% year on year. You saw the numbers just come out. It's more than 3% year on year.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
It is. The math is direct. The math is
Look, it
fluctuates each month from 2.7% to 3%.
It's higher than when he got here,
It's not 9%.
His central campaign promise was he was going to take inflation and drive it down, and instead he took inflation and it's up.
I thought in the Fed
it was 3 when he got here, and now it's more. It could not be simpler than that.
It's around 3, and we're involved in a war.
He said on day one it would go down. He came in on day one, and now it's up.
It's up to 3%. It was 21.5% price
increases. It would go
over
down
4 years. Over 4 years, it was 21.5%.
Promised it would go down.
Democrats own the affordability.
Listen to me.
Period.
The Democrats are literally playing the game of we will lie to you, and we'll see who believes it. That's what they're doing. That's what's going on here. Pete Buttigieg thinks that he can lie to you to your face and get away with it. Now, granted, this is nothing new when it comes to politics. This has been a thing for a long time. Okay, it's nothing new. Politicians have lied ever since we came into the Levant and created cities again. This is nothing new. But Buttigieg right here is putting on a masterclass. He's tilting his head forward to get you to take him more seriously. He then magically changes in size and height. And by the way, I don't say this to be mean. He looks like a rat. Seriously, that scraggly beard. But seriously, the teeth, the small chin, the bad beard on the sides. He looks like a literal mouse. I'm sorry, I can't unsee it. And I shouldn't be laughing because the game that he's playing is destructive. Trump has been saying the American financial system has been rigged against Americans for years. The Fed operates in the dark. Wall Street writes the rules. And the establishment collects fees, whether you win or lose. And guess what? Trump was right. Your 401k manager gets paid whether your stock goes up talking about. He was a part of the Biden administration and was the head of transportation. And that's when we started seeing a whole lot of people with H-1B visas who can't really even read English. And we're starting to notice that there's all these trucking incidents. Pete Buttigieg probably needs to be investigated over this. And yet he's out here on Squawk Box trying to say that inflation is technically up, therefore you must hold Trump accountable. Bubba, buddy, you were the head of transportation when Joe Biden had policy that skyrocketed inflation and got so bad that he couldn't handle a literal egg and formula crisis. We had two of these things happen under your administration that you were a part of, Pete. I'm surprised that Joe Kernan and the rest of these guys didn't go harder on him. But Pete Buttigieg is running for president. So he's going to say whatever he can to get ahead. He's going to miss the entire plot on Iran. And by the way, the plot, isn't about the Strait of Hormuz. The reason gas prices are higher than the 20%, because 20% of the world's oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has a long coastline on. The reason gas price is higher because the demand is then higher. They're buying more of American gas. Therefore, it's going to be a literal supply and demand situation. A very good bellwether for this is, does my dad understand this? And my dad and I will talk about these policies all the time when we get some time alone. We just got to watch the Masters. So during the commercial breaks, I just ask him. The dude's been around. He's seen some things. He's at the top edge of Gen X. And he's not panicking, period. He knows some things aren't great. And ever since the inflation crisis that happened under Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, he's been a little bit more aware. But he's been doing so because he's wanting to make sure that he's providing for his family. Pete Buttigieg, on the other hand, has been contributing to massive problems. And then, and this is the last main talking point here, this is a he said, she said with Iran. Does Iran have capabilities to acquire nuclear weapons? They probably do. Okay? There's a reason that we did a precision strike with the B-2 bomber against their nuclear sites. We did this a year ago. It seemed to have worked then, but the Iranian regime hasn't gotten the message. So we have the only thing left in our arsenal. This is ultimately an issue of trust. Do you trust the current administration? Do you trust what the CIA is telling us? Do you trust these intelligence groups? We've seen what happens when we put too much trust in these groups, because remember, WMDs really didn't exist. They technically did, but they were old. They were made in the 80s and might have been trafficked through Iran-Contra. So it's understandable to be very, very suspicious of our intelligence agencies, but that's not what Pete Buttigieg is even saying. He's saying that Obama's the good guy. He is trusting old talking points that don't work anymore. He is hoping that he can just lie to your face, and he is doing the best he can to basically put on as much projection as he can, as much of a theater kid as he possibly can bring to bear, and lie to you. Omit the truth, deflect from reality, deny certain things, and just hope that you're going to buy the act. That is the entire game. This isn't about Squawk Box. This isn't even about Pete Buttigieg. This is about the playbook that the Democrats now use. And the question now is, how many people are going to believe them? That will be the question that answers the entire midterms. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian.
But it's time for Lefties Losing It. Start with veteran Democrat strategist James Carville. He's often presented as the sensible old guard before they all went crazy and woke. But the elder statesman of the party is just as deranged as the current crop. Listen to him rant here about wanting to watch President Trump suffer.
I want to be clear on this. I do not want that man to die. I want to watch him suffer. And I can't watch a dead person suffer. So I want him to be fully cognizant come November. So when people tell him.
I can't watch a dead person suffer. I mean, these people are sick. I keep telling you that. Sick and often violent. Watch this leftist activist, Chris Ostroshoko, assault conservative female journalist Savannah Hernandez. Sick, sick stuff.
It's over. It's documented. So get charged. It's over. Dude, we love you.
Was that a white man taking a stand against racism by assaulting a brown woman? Is that what happened there? This is a woman with Filipino and Mexican heritage. He should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law for that. Did you see how he had to be held back by others? He wanted to continue that assault. And this character has been celebrated by the leftist media in the past. Here he is, featured with Jen Psaki. Remember her, Joe Biden's former White House press secretary turned MSNBC host.
He's using his newfound fame to encourage others to stand up for community too. Ahead of nationwide strikes and protests tomorrow, we asked Chris if he had any words of wisdom to share, and here's what he had to say.
We need some peace and harmony in our state and across our country. We've been dealing with enough tyranny. We're done with that. We need some peace, love, and harmony. Please come out. Please show up. Get off that couch. If I can do it, you can do it.
Oh, yes, he's all about peace, love, and harmony. You saw that. Now, get ready to be captivated by a stunning and brave display from a bunch of silly young women who performed a protest dance aimed at President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. That would be the President Trump who first alerted authorities to Epstein's creepy antics and who Epstein hated and tried to destroy to his dying day. But why let facts get in the way of interpretive dance?
I have a tale to tell.
So brave, so stunning. Now, do you remember the sitcom Malcolm in the Middle? It was pretty good. All about a genius child, Malcolm, and his dysfunctional family. Remember, he had a big bunch of brothers. Well, now in the new series, they're rebooting it. He has one less brother because one of those brothers is now trans or non-binary.
Oh, yeah, definitely love Trump here.
He knew from the age of 5 he was a they them.
I was like 5 and I started feeling wrong. I thought I was great at hiding it because you guys never said anything. He was looking at me and I knew that he knew and had always known.
Let's go back to MS
Subscribe.
MS Now, whatever they're calling themselves. And this time we're checking in with Rachel Maddow, doing what she does best, misleading her.
How you doing, man? Good morning.
Here she pretends she cares about veterans and reads extensively from an NPR piece about veterans losing their homes.
How are these guys doing taking care of the troops and the veterans who come home from war? This is the lead from NPR. Quote, more than 10,000 veterans lost their homes to foreclosure since May of last year when the Trump administration shut down a key safety net in the VA home loan program. Quote, the Trump administration was warned this would happen. At a hearing in March 2025 before the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, a representative from the Mortgage Bankers Association warned about it explicitly.
Oh, she went on to read more extracts from the piece, but curiously, she forgot this key part of the story. The roots of the crisis go back to a mistake made during the Biden administration when the VA abruptly shut down a pandemic assistance program while thousands of vets were still in the middle of it. I'm sure that was just an innocent oversight from Rachel. Must be. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, the MS Now host makes CNN look balanced and rational.
Yes, Rachel is going to Rachel, and that's what she does. There's nothing innocent about her.
She's a verb now.
Yes, and she knows exactly what she's doing, and she is quite smart. So, the way you described her leading her dim-witted audience, there's sort of a Pied Piper aspect to what she's doing. nobody from the right watches MSNBC or MS Now, so that's not a problem. But in this day and age of social media, it does get clipped and shared large and wide. And I think what she's really doing there is taking advantage of the wedge and the fracture in the Trump base right now as it relates to the war and this idea that he's focusing too much on foreign affairs and not enough on domestic affairs, like the veterans. And then she's insinuating like, oh, look, he's sending people to war. And then when the veterans come back, they're not looked after. That's
Whoopi Goldberg went on The View today and defended Eric Swalwell. This is after 4 women came out and said this guy essayed them, assaulted them. Then we got the Manhattan DA investigating to saying, hey, we can't hold Eric Swalwell accountable because Orange Man bad. And a few hours later, Eric Swalwell, he resigns from Congress. I know it's crazy, right? But see, I want us to pump the brakes for a minute and just see just how Democratic hacks get down. Defend the party, defend the party, defend the party. Hate Trump, defend the party, defend the party. Nothing about the women. Let me ask you a question. What kind of person looks at 4 credible witnesses, an active criminal investigation, and 21 Democrats pulling their endorsements from Eric Swalwell? Oh no, maybe Whoopi could have thought maybe there's a reason they're pulling their endorsements. Maybe because this guy is bad news. I wonder if Whoopi would have done that for a black congressperson. I'm just asking. And I know it's going to be, you're going to say, Tim Black, man, you playing the race card. Nah, man, I'm not. I'm being real here. I don't remember Whoopi ever riding for black people like this. What kind of person makes excuses for Eric Swalwell at a time like this? I'm going to tell you the kind of person, the same kind of person that called Melrose Mike an agent. You know, Al Sharpton, that same type of person. The same type of person that when you criticize them, calls you a fool, a moron, stupid, jackass, and all other types of names instead of standing on business. Yeah, I'm talking about Roland Martin. Yeah, those are the type of people that Whoopi Goldberg is with. This is the same type of person I've been covering all week. Watch this.
So let's talk about what's been going on, because Congressman Eric Swalwell just suspended his run for California governor over allegations of sexual assault. He's speaking out on social media as colleagues on both sides of the aisle are calling for him to step down. Take a look.
A lot has been said about me today through anonymous allegations. I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly. These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They're absolutely false. They did not happen. They have never happened. And I will fight them with everything that I have.
On Friday, I had my staff initiate the process and set the process to file motions for expulsions for multiple members of Congress, both Democrat and Republican. And I think even though Democrats and Republicans might have ideological differences, I think we should be able to all agree on the basics that maybe if you're, sexually harassing or assaulting or have issues of domestic violence or you're stealing funds from FEMA, maybe you should not be in Congress.
What about president?
Hey, if Eric Swalwell can get elected 3 times by his own party, yeah, I guess that would be okay, wouldn't it? You think people are going to choose Swalwell? No, I don't think so. In fact, as we all know, he just said he's going to resign from Congress. But let's keep going, because Whoopi could look worse if you paid her to look worse.
I'm just asking, because he's denying all the allegations, and he's not the only member of Congress facing accusations of sexual misconduct right now. So, with all that we've seen, what should be happening here? What should happen here?
He needed to take himself out of the race for governor, and he needs to leave Congress. And I think what she said on that video should align with everyone. It's not a party problem. It's a certain amount of character integrity. Yeah. If you are going to be a public servant in an elective government, there should be a baseline level of goodness, of character. You're handling money and power. We said when you hold that kind of power, you shouldn't be in office.
Eric Swalwell and the others who have been accused of also terrible things have every right to fight these allegations and go prove that they're wrong. What they don't have a right to do is do it while they're getting paid with our taxpayer money.
I agree with you, Sarah. It's not a Democratic problem. It's not a Republican problem. It's just a character problem.
Yeah.
And our representatives who represent us, that is not a right. It is an honor. And I think they should all go. I
can't believe this, man. I'm agreeing with Ana Navarro and with Sunny Hostin in the same day. Well, I mean, I disagree with Whoopi. I agree with earlier person. I don't know the first lady's name. I forget her name. But I agree with that. Damn, man, I wonder if this is going to hold. We're not talking about 20-year-old, 30-year-old allegations. We're talking about something that happened last year, 2 years ago. So this is like right off the presses. And there are also 3 other women alleging additional misconduct, including him sending unsolicited messages, new photos, including photos of his junk. I thought Swalwell was a born-ass, jerk, boring dude, like lack of chemistry and charisma and lack of style, but seems like he's a perv, man. Allegedly, right? It's always allegedly. It looks bad, though. Inappropriate advances such as touching, kissing without consent in social settings in front of people. This guy's like a straight-up octopus. Allegedly, with one of the allegations saying somehow she ended up in this hotel room with no recollection of how she got there. Looks bad. This is paid promotional content. I've been compensated to discuss this company on this channel. This is not investment advice. If you've been following this channel, you know I've been tracking Saga Metals, trading as SAGMF in the US and SAGA in Canada. Back in January, over 40 former Swalwell staffers signed a letter calling the claim serious and credible, urging him to resign from Congress and drop his gubernatorial bid while supporting a full investigation. Oh, my goodness gracious. These are Democrats. But still, Whoopi is keeping hope alive.
Swalwell was running to be governor, and he was the lead candidate for the Democrats. I mean, California overtook Japan as the 4th largest global economy. It has a GDP of $4.25 trillion. And so I'd like to see Kamala Harris maybe put her hat back in the ring.
I guess it was I was going to get through a View segment with agreeing with Sunny. Somehow she had to find a way to snatch all types of reasonableness out of her commentary. We don't want Kamala.
Swalwell sat on the Intel Committee, and there were allegations. He had a suspected Chinese spy, Fang Fang, who was associated with him in his office. Now, he was not found to have engaged in wrongdoing, but to me, my spidey senses from having worked at the Pentagon go off, which is it was an open secret that he had issues with women, that he was somebody who was susceptible potentially to heavy drinking, to impropriety with women. Real quickly, 2019, this is post Me Too, which was not just a let's dig out the ones that have done wrong things. It was a loud warning that people will not be silenced anymore. Yes. And he arrogantly did that again in 2019.
Yeah. Well, you start at the head.
Yeah.
And until you clear out the issues, they're going to stay. But I just feel like, as long as the head has all these issues, 55 people can come out and say they should drain this. But if you're not draining from the top, I don't know if people are going to take it seriously.
And I'm not understanding why Whoopi Goldberg just keeps being this person. I mean, I know they give her prepared remarks. She just reads them. She just says them anyway. And it's like, Whoopi, people do not respect this nonsense. It's like Trump derangement syndrome times 500. Women say this guy took advantage of him. Your defense of not calling him out for it, not letting him leave the race. Remember, this wasn't even about him leaving Congress. She didn't think he should leave the gubernatorial race. Yo, that's crazy. Talk about throwing women under the bus. All to spike Trump. It's ridiculous, fam. This is the type of thing I'm saying, man. To the very end, Democratic shield. I'm not even looking at these people as black or white or working class or Hispanic or Asian or Latino or whatever. I'm looking at them as blue.
Because one of the accusers of Eric Swalwell is having a press conference right now. Let's go ahead and take that live.
This was 16 minutes. Well, this was 25 minutes ago. 25 minutes ago, Eric Swalwell, or Swallowswell, how y'all want to say it. This is the accuser speaking out.
Eric Fudali and I will also have statements. Lana will not be answering questions. Eric Fudali and I will be answering questions after the statements. Thank you all for coming. Lana?
Hello, everyone.
Get closer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lana Drews. In 2018, while I was living and working as a model in Beverly Hills, and I also owned a fashion software company, I had contact with Eric Swalwell on 3 separate occasions after meeting him socially. He offered me connections to further my software company, and I also had an interest in local politics. He invited me to 2 public events. I knew he was married at the time and that his wife was pregnant. He was my friend. On the 3rd occasion, I believe he drugged my drink. I only had 1 glass of wine. We were supposed to go to a political event, and he said he needed to get paperwork from his hotel room. When I arrived at his hotel room, I was already incapacitated, and I couldn't move my arms or my body. He raped me, and he choked me. And while he was choking me, I lost consciousness. And I thought I died. I did not consent to any sexual activity. Although I did not undergo a rape kit at the time, I disclosed the assault to the people closest to me. I also recorded these events in my handwritten calendar. The assault and its impact were later documented during my therapy sessions at a sexual assault center in Connecticut. It had a profound impact on my mental health. I self-medicated in an unhealthy way. I did not want to live anymore. I cried all the time for years. At the time, I was in a dating relationship with a boyfriend I was fully committed to. I've never cheated in my life, and I would never have engaged in a consensual sexual encounter with Eric Swalwell. That reality further underscores the non-consensual nature of what occurred. It was a politically unusual and intense time in Beverly Hills, and I was considering a run for city council, which placed me in proximity to political figures and events and added to the pressure to remain composed and silent. Eric was aware I owned a software company, and he spoke repeatedly about his ability to make introductions in Silicon Valley, referencing his political representation and influence there. I was not interested in him romantically, but I was interested in the business he offered to provide.
Like and subscribe, everybody. Like and subscribe if you haven't.
My delay in taking action action against Eric was driven by fear, not doubt. Fear of his political power, his background as an attorney, and his family law enforcement ties. I have never doubted what happened. I stand with the other women who have come forward. And I will be making a report to law enforcement shortly with my attorneys.
Hello, my name is Eric Fudali. I'm a partner and I'm the managing attorney of the Bloom firm, and I'm very proud here to represent Lana. Mr. Swalwell and others have suggested that the allegation political campaign or career. This is about much more than politics, and belittling such serious allegations is offensive to Lana and the victims everywhere. This is not about Democrat versus Republican. This is about accountability versus silence. This is not about the pursuit of governor. This is about the pursuit of justice. This is not about whether you're on the right side or the left side of the aisle. This is about whether you're on the right side or the left side of justice, truth, and accountability. This is not about the end of a campaign or congressional service. This is about the end of exploitation and the abuse of power, political or otherwise. Lisa and I have dedicated our careers to fighting the power in the name of justice, regardless of the politics of the perpetrator. My hope is that this message both encourages others who are suffering in silence to stand up and fight. And also, I hope this encourages the grossly politicized American public and politicians to put politics aside when it comes to allegations like these and stand up for what is right and not what is just politically convenient. Thank you.
Hi, I'm attorney Lisa Bloom, and I'm very proud to represent the very brave and strong woman sitting next to me today, Lana Drews. Lana deserves what all women deserve: autonomy over her own body. Every minute of every hour of every day of her life, her body is hers to control. And no man, no matter his position of power or station in life, ever has the right to make that decision for her. As her attorney, I have advised Lana of her legal rights. Immediately, we will be filing a police report with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office, which is the law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction over incidents that happen in West Hollywood. Lana is committed to fully cooperating with law enforcement, and we will do everything possible to assist and support her in that. We will be providing all of her evidence there, including text messages, journal entries, photographs, and witness information. We will encourage the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office.
Rapists. Not like MAGA. It's almost like I have a crystal ball. Yeah, from this point on, everything's a formality. It's important you understand that the Democrats did this to Eric Swalwell. Well, he kind of did it to himself, but they used it against him. Why? Well, because they needed a sacrificial lamb to prove that they don't support rapists. Not like MAGA. No, that's what they're going to use going into the election of the 2026 midterms. Yep, there you go. That's what I was saying yesterday, and this is what they're saying today.
This is yet another example of how the Democratic Party is vastly different than the Republicans. I mean, we hold our own accountable when they do something wrong. The Republicans, on the other hand, they very obviously do not do that, especially when it comes to Trump.
Yep, here's another one. Criminal charges need to be filed. This isn't about a governor's race. This isn't about elections. This is about accountability. And one more.
A lot has been said about me today through anonymous allegations. I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly.
When the first word out of your mouth about this is a lie, I am inclined not to believe you, Eric.
Yep, that's going to be the Democrat flex in the 2026 midterms. When Democrats find rapists among their ranks, because Trump is supposedly a rapist, they kick them out. They're not like MAGA. Okay, what about Bill Clinton and all those others on that Epstein list that have D's next to their name? You ready to do that with everybody? Because we're game. If you're game, we'll do it for the R's too. Let's do it. You ready? Or is this just more political theater? Yeah, that's what I thought.
You're watching the Kramer Says Project.
Almost like I have a crystal ball. Yeah, from this point on, everything's a formality. It's important you understand that the Democrats did this to Eric Swalwell. Well, he kind of did it to himself, but they used it against him. Why? Well, because they needed a sacrificial lamb to prove that they don't support rapists. Not like MAGA. No, that's what they're going to use going into the election of the 2026 midterms. Yep, there you go. That's what I was saying yesterday, and this is what they're saying today.
This is yet another example of how the Democratic Party is vastly different than the Republicans. I mean, we hold our own accountable when they do something wrong. The Republicans, on the other hand, they very obviously do not do that, especially when it comes to Trump.
Yep, here's another one.
Criminal charges need to be filed. This isn't about a governor's race. This isn't about elections. This is about accountability.
And one more.
A lot has been said about me today through anonymous allegations. I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly.
When the first word out of your mouth about this is a lie, I am inclined not to believe you, Eric.
Yep, that's going to be the Democrat flex in the 2026 midterms. When Democrats find rapists among their ranks, because Trump is supposedly a rapist, they kick them out. They're not like MAGA. Okay, what about Bill Clinton and all those others on that Epstein list that have D's next to their name? You ready to do that with everybody? Because we're game. If you're game, we'll do it for the R's too. Let's do it. You ready? Or is this just more political?
To fully and promptly investigate her complaint. We will also cooperate with any other law enforcement agencies who are investigating Mr. Swalwell. For example, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which we understand has already opened an investigation. Because Lana and our law firm are here not just for her, but for the other women, to be helpful in any way that we can. We will not rest until we get justice for Lana. I want to say something now directly to Mr. Swalwell. Your recent statement that you are just not perfect, you are not a saint, is just blather and spin. Stop it. Your statement that this is all just a matter between you and your wife is laughable, if not for the fact that it is a slap in the face to the victims. Your statement yesterday that you just made, quote, mistakes in judgment is defensive and minimizing. Stop it. Own your behavior. To any other women out there who want to talk to us, and I have received messages from other women, we are here to talk to you. To anyone else who is a witness who wants to talk to us, we are here and we want to talk to you. Of course, for free and confidentially. I am very easy to reach via my website, thebloomfirm.com. Supporting women like Lana, who stand with the other women and who show such tremendous courage, is my absolute pleasure. Questions?
Could you please spell your client's name and also tell us when this occurred?
It happened in 2018, as she said. Her name is Lana, Lonna. Drews, DREWES.
How many people have reached out to you that you just mentioned, and have you heard from Mr. Swallow since his allegations?
3 other women have reached out to me just since I announced this press conference yesterday. I have not heard from Mr. Swallow, no.
Swallow has dropped out of the race for governor. He's resigned from Congress. What's the next form of justice for you? Because those would be what people would say that's the political motivation. What's justice now?
Justice now are the criminal investigations. So losing one's job is not a sufficient consequence for these types of allegations. We feel that the criminal investigations are the priority.
So are you representing both civilly and criminally, and do you think that Eric Swalwell should face criminal charges for this incident?
We are making a report to law enforcement. We're encouraging them to fully investigate. That is the priority right now.
Will you be filing that today?
We will be going immediately.
What's your message to Swalwell's wife and children, his family, who's going through this right now?
You know, I have nothing but sympathy for his wife and his children. I'm sure this is a very difficult time for them.
And the 3 women you say reached out to you, are they based in California or are they elsewhere?
I'm not going to provide any additional details or information about the 3 who have already reached out.
What legal hurdles do you anticipate in this investigation?
That'll be up to the law enforcement. Our priority at this point is just to make sure that Lana makes the complaint, makes the report to law enforcement, how they handle the investigation, their strategy, and what hurdles they may, they may find is up to them.
Lisa, often these victims women feel that no one will listen to them, no one will believe them. When this news broke over the weekend, did this give your client the feeling that someone would finally listen and it was time to come forward?
Thank you, Jim. You know, I think we've all learned enough to know now that when it comes to sexual assault allegations, it takes time for women or any victim to process what happened, to understand how to deal with the trauma, to work through it, and to get to a point where she is strong enough to come forward. It takes time. That's why the law has extended statutes of limitations, time deadlines to file, because the law recognizes that sexual assault allegations are different and it just takes time. So for Lana, now is the time. And even now, it's very difficult, but she's doing it.
Have you followed Eric Swalwell's political career and if you're comfortable talking a little bit about how that made you feel and you know, just kind of seeing his career?
She's not going to be answering any questions. She understood.
Can you answer that?
Thank you. Was she following his career? I don't know.
Some who know Mr. Swalwell have suggested that he was living a secret life, a double life, and perhaps sort of gobsmacked all the accusations that have come. Whether in this particular instance, or perhaps in your experience, is that usually the case that people who are around someone like him are just totally in the dark on this, or are there clues? Are there people who should have known something was wrong?
Well, it is very common when someone is multiply accused of sexual misconduct that the people around them don't know. That's very common. Or any kind of crimes. People on the street often say, I had no idea. So I think that's pretty common.
Do you have a message for the social media content creators who started publishing some of these allegations and helped these women to realize maybe for the first time that they were not alone in what happened?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the women on social media, to the women who have already come forward, to anyone who's been an advocate, anyone who has assisted. It's very hard to do this by yourself. And anyone who can support women, who can help them, who can advocate, it makes a tremendous difference. So thank you.
And I'll add to that, there's a phenomenon we see in our line of work called collective empowerment, that when one woman comes forward or one victim comes forward against their abuser, it often empowers, like a domino effect, multiple other women to come forward. This is why Lisa and myself are always encouraging women to come forward, stop suffering in silence, because not only are you saving yourself, but you're also saving someone who you are empowering, who you will probably never meet, to come forward and step up and start fighting against their Sheriff Buser.
Lisa, you said that you're going to ask the sheriff's department to investigate the case and
Yes.
you're going to cooperate with other entities, law enforcement agencies.
Correct.
What is the final objective of this? What do you want to
Justice.
see? Where do you want to see him?
Justice, that's the final objective. Justice for Lana. Yes?
Can you describe where that photo was from? And
Yes.
Can you give us any more details about the text messages or any evidence?
So this is a photograph that we've enlarged, obviously. It was the opening of a restaurant called Avra, A-V-R-A, in 2018. And it's one of the times that Lana described where she met with Eric Swalwell.
Will the firm be releasing any additional supplemental material to the media?
Not to the media, to the sheriff's office. We will be providing all of our evidence to the sheriff's.
Can you repeat which picture? I'm sorry.
So this was the opening of a restaurant called Avra, A-V-R-A, where this is Ms. Drews, this is Mr. Swalwell in 2018.
How many times have the two seen each other, met each other?
Right, so 3 times, as she said in her statement. There was no contact after the incident.
Would this be the first time law enforcement is contacted?
By us? Yes,
By
yes, yes. Okay? Okay.
Could you react? We have 2 congressmen now resigning before expulsion, and just a reaction to that before let's move forward.
Enough is enough. Of course, anyone in a position of power who is credibly accused of abusing a woman or anyone should step down. Of course, it should never happen in the first place. I think the American public is sick and tired of these stories, and I'm sick and tired of women being victimized by men in power. Enough is enough. It's really appalling. I'm glad at least these 2 have stepped down. There are 2 more who are being investigated in Congress for misconduct and facing expulsion. I can say briefly about Mr. Swalwell resigning from Congress yesterday. I do not, in my opinion, see that as an act of accountability at all. I see it as an effort to avoid the expulsion hearing that was coming, because once he steps down, the ethics committee no longer has jurisdiction to impose consequences on him. So even though he made some kind of a statement about I made mistakes, etc., very vague, not really owning up to anything, certainly not apologizing to women. I believe that was the reason why he stepped down, to avoid that hearing. However, there are other consequences such as law enforcement, and that's what we're doing now.
What would you consider accountability?
Justice via the criminal justice system. Right now, we're focusing on the criminal justice system. We think that's the most
Could
appropriate.
you be a little more specific in justice? Can you tell us what exactly you're looking for?
I'm not, because once you make a report to law enforcement, it is in their hands. We can control what we can control, which is we will answer all of their questions, we will cooperate, we will provide all of the evidence. And then the LA County Sheriff's Office and the Los Angeles District Attorneys will make a decision that they feel is appropriate. Okay, thank you, everyone.
I guess first off, your initial reaction to everything that's happened since Friday.
I'm look, I live in the world of telling the truth, and I'm disappointed. I'm shocked. I'm beyond disappointed. You know, we expect people in Congress and in our political world to tell the truth. And, you know, our people, before we endorsed him, asked him numerous times, is there anything we need to know? He lied to us, right? You don't lie about stuff like this. You don't lie. You don't do it, right?
You guys have been close friends for...
I've known him for the longest time. And I'm going to tell you something that I've never seen him out with women. When he stayed here occasionally, he's never brought a woman here.
Did you suspect this at all?
No! I was blown away. Like, blown away. Like, there's no way I would have endorsed him.
Yeah.
It's such a shock. And you know what?
Yeah.
But a lot of the phone calls I've had over the last couple of days, if you want to get a really good investigative journalist, start investigating everyone in Congress. Because it's a cesspool of
Subscribe.
the S word.
Some more of this going on.
I got to be careful, the FCC reviews.
Yeah.
And start investigating it. Clean it up. We are customers of the United States. We deserve equal or greater value for our tax dollars. All right?
Fair,
Is it fair enough?
yeah, I was gonna say first say you're mad. I mean,
Mad?
Yeah.
I am no longer a Democrat. I'm now a libertarian Republican. Because that's what a blue dog Democrat used to be. Okay? It's called executing, being accountable, enforcing, respect, responsibility, and results.
Hello.
Knowing what your job description is, delivering results, unifying, making this country great. The great brand we have, okay? Or we used to. Can we get it together, please?
Yeah.
Can we get it together, please? And you know what? When I ran for the governorship, I did because I couldn't find a candidate that was worthy to back. And I thought Eric had the goods. But he'd tell the truth. Okay?
Do you like any of these other options?
Too early to tell. Okay? Too early to tell. I met them all. Too early to tell. And, we're past March 31st. Too bad. Otherwise, I'd still be in the race. Okay? Because I had solutions. I studied the problems. And I know what's best for California because I grew up here. And I am sad. Save California, please. Save California. We need to be saved.
How's your relationship with Eric? Are you guys still friends?
Eric who? Is that clear? Don't bust the trust. You bust the trust, okay? You don't exist in my life. You don't bust the trust. It's all about having integrity. Integrity, okay? I shake your hand, you shake my hand, and make a deal. We work together. We all have to make California the best it can possibly do. And you know what? I'm so disappointed in the Democrats. And I've said this before, I think on your show. They're not woke. They're not weak. They have no brass balls. I am now a Republican. And I wish I could say a lot of other things that I used to say.
That's what I'm talking about.
But I have to be respectful to you.
Thank you for the chat. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe, everybody.
How can these endorsers not know this? How can CTA not know this? How can SEIU not know this? How can not these endorsers all not know this? Okay?
Excuse me.
Because from what I'm hearing, it's pretty well known in DC that this stuff's going on. So guess what? Wake up, people. Start asking tough questions. We deserve better.
Are you trying to figure out a way to get the contributions that you made to Swallow's campaign back?
I don't know if that's legally possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But you know what? The way this went down, you can't say you didn't know this. And that's what I got a problem with. Okay? I got a problem with it because it's about being ethical and moral and telling the truth. Okay? No one's perfect, right? We all got problems. Everyone's got issues. Tell the truth. Tell the truth, man. Come on. And you know what? You don't sleep with those you work with. You don't.
almost done because I know you're a busy guy, but you feel for his family. I can imagine.
I know his family very well. I'm sad for the kids. I'm sad for his wife. Okay, but I'm telling you, there are so many more in DC that need to be looked at. Okay, just because I've heard too much over the last few days, just listening.
Yeah.
And we better wake up and fix this. Okay, this is our money. It's our taxpayer dollars. We gotta wake up. Wake up.
Last thing, just how did it end with you and Mr. Swalwell when he was leaving? How did your relationship with the two of you end?
I also do long form videos too as well. Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 16. I do long videos as well. You can check them out.
Really simple. I met it with my attorney and I said, pal, you busted the trust. 2, you didn't tell the truth. 3, I'm disappointed and disgusted. Get them out of here. Pardon me.
Yeah. And then made him leave.
I don't know, walked away.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. He left. I don't know where he is. I don't care. I don't care. Okay, because we don't do this to one another. We don't. Yeah, I'm upset. I am disgusted. I think you can feel that.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add?
I stole your laptop. That's funny. I don't think I stole your laptop.
People wake up. Save our state. Our state is savable. Okay?
Got it from Best Buy.
Leaders. Great leaders in our state. Leaders that have fixed broken. Because we're broken. Leaders that can execute, that we hold accountable, with checks and balances on our money, that are good stewards of our capital, and they enforce our laws, and they respect us, and they're responsible to us. All right? We are customers. Give us more than we bargained for. Okay?
Yeah. The citizens are the customers, and right now this is what we're getting.
Yes, yes.
Unacceptable.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, you guys.
Well, it's time for Lefties Losing It. Start with veteran Democrat strategist James Carville. He's often presented as the sensible old guard before they all went crazy and woke. But the elder statesman of the party is just as deranged as the current crop. Listen to him rant here about wanting to watch President Trump suffer.
I want to be clear on this. I do not want that man to die.
All right, chat. I've been live streaming for about 2 hours and 22 minutes. I'll be back tomorrow and Thursday. Zach, you ain't been saying nothing the whole entire time. You're just trolling. I'll be back tomorrow. Well, thank you guys. Like and subscribe. Name is Deunta. What money? I'll be back tomorrow, you guys. Love you guys. No, I'm not doing it for free. I just got monetized January. Thank you, guys. I'm not getting paid the big bucks. I'm not even sponsored yet. So I'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow.